Next, we can discuss on the advantages and disadvantages of a company. What are the advantages of the company? We have already discussed the characteristics of the company. These characteristics of the company are included in its advantages. The advantages of company includes the corporate personality of a company, limited liability, perpetual succession, transferability of shares, separate property, capacity to sue and be sued. These every characteristics of the company are the advantages to the company, and this can be coined under the advantages of the company. Let me repeat once more. Advantages of the company are corporate personality of the company, limited liability, perpetual succession, transferability of shares, separate property, capacity to sue and be sued. These all are the advantages of the company. Now let's move on to the disadvantages of the company. The disadvantages of the company includes formalities and expenses, corporate disclosure, separation of control from ownership, greater social responsibility, greater tax burden, detailed winding up procedure. These are the disadvantages of the company. Let's discuss in detail each of these disadvantages of the company. Formalities and expenses. To incorporate a company, detailed legal formalities and procedures have to be complied with. And for this, considerable amount of time and money is required. Also, after the incorporation, the working of the company as per the Companies Act. Here, Companies Act means Companies Act 2013. That's a tedious process. And for a company, the audit is mandatory, and it's also mandatory for the maintenance of books and registers. These everything require considerable amount of time and money. And compared to other various forms of business organizations, these kinds of formalities and relating expenses are more for a company. And next, we can discuss on corporate disclosure. That's the next disadvantages of the company. What do you mean by corporate disclosure? Yeah, disclose certain information to its members. A company or a corporate have to disclose certain information to its members. Who are the members? The members of the company are shareholders. They having limited or restricted accessibility to the internal management and day-to-day workings. Henceforth, certain informations or disclosure have to be made timely by the company or the personals behind the day-to-day working of the company to the real members or shareholders of the company and other interest holders. The next is separation of control from ownership. Members cannot act in individual capacity for with regard the company. That is, there is a separation of control from the ownership. That means shareholders are or the members or shareholders are not actually running the day-to-day affairs of the company. That means the ownership is separated from the control or the day-to-day working of the company. And greater social responsibility. That's another disadvantage of the company. For a company have to show a very much greater social responsibility in the working. And also the company being along, the company is also subjected to greater control and regulation. Other than other forms of business organization like sole proprietorship, partnership, etc., or a joint Hindu family business, the social responsibility regard which a company is obliged to is more, and a company has to spend more compared to other form of business organization for fulfilling its greater social responsibility. That also accounts to another disadvantage of company. And the next disadvantage of company is greater the tax burden. Yes, the tax burden on company is greater. Burden is more than other forms of business organization. Compared to sole proprietorship or partnership or joint Hindu family business, the tax burden is more for a company. For the company is the other forms of business organization are taxed in graduated scale or slab system. But how the company is taxed? Income tax on whole its income at flat rate. A company is taxed on whole of its income at flat rate and liable to tax without any minimum taxable limit. A company is liable to be taxed without any minimum taxable limit. You all know, for an individual or a sole proprietor, there are a minimum limit for which he had to pay no tax. But that's not the case of the company. Income tax on whole of its income has to be paid with regard to a company. That's a greater tax burden with regard to the company. And the next is detailed winding up procedure. The procedure for winding up is very detailed and elaborate as in the case of company. Comparing to other form of business organization, this is very tedious, elaborate and detailed with regard company. And the procedure for winding up is more expensive and also very time consuming, which has to be done everything complying the act. Here the act means Companies Act. Everything we are discussing now with regard the company law of India is coming with regard the Companies Act of 2013. Thank you.